Lynda, are we all going to live to 100? And what on earth will that mean?
Well, I'm sure that you and I will live to 100, and it's likely that many of our kids will. You know, when people think about what does it mean to live to 100, they just think about the last 20 years of life. I think you've got to think about it right from the beginning, because it basically means the redesign of the whole of life.
That's extraordinary thought, isn't it? Because what you thought you would be doing between 20 and 30 changes if what you're doing between 80 and 100 changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, I think the big takeaway from the book and the conversations after it have been, we used to think about life as 3 stages: full-time education, full-time work, full-time retirement. Well, each one of those stages will now change. And what we're thinking about now is a multi-stage life where you're educated right the way through, you work right the way through, but you also have time for leisure and retirement right the way through. So you actually mix it up more.
What's people's sort of attitude towards this theory? Is it resistant, or is it something that people are embracing and know that they have to change, if you like, and evolve?
I think, you know, we've been around the world talking about this, and it sort of depends on the country. When we speak in America, everybody's worried that they're not saving. When we talk in Japan, they sort of know that they're already the oldest population, so they've really come to terms with living to 100. Our book is the best-selling book in Japan, and that's because, and young people are buying it because they know they've got to change. So I think in some societies it's just seen as a terrible savings problem, whereas others it's seen as an opportunity to really reinvent yourself.
And that's because this is, you know, inevitable evolution, and you know, historically you said humans are quite good at adapting, but some institutions aren't.
Yeah, I think that you know, the challenge is that this is happening very quickly. You know, every 10 years we live another 2 years longer. That's a very, very quick. Every 5 years technology changes. So there's a lot of change happening. And I think in general people are quite good at deciding what they want to do differently. But institutions, government policies, corporate policies tend to lag behind. We call that institutional lag. You know, it takes them a lot longer to sort of catch up with what it is people want to do.
And so you'd like to see that change in them to be more flexible and to be faster moving and have better reaction time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think governments should be very cautious about age stereotyping. One of the reasons that people are leaving work at 55, between 55 and 60, is not because of the retirement age, it's because they can't get a job. And that's because companies have a very old-fashioned view about what it is to be 50 or 60 or 70. So I think governments have to change policy, but I think also corporations have got to realise that many people will now want to work into their 70s. They're healthy, they're cognitively, 100%. Why shouldn't they? They've got to change their attitudes.
And also, I suppose it's sort of teaching people and institutions that people can have a number of careers. Traditionally, people have perhaps pursued one, and perhaps we all need to have a multi-skilled sort of outlook.
Yeah, and that's a marvel of living long. You know, I know people tend to think about a long life and just think, oh my God, what about the savings? But another way to think about it is, I'm just giving you an extra 20 years of healthy living. How marvellous is that?
And do you think people are fully accepting of that in this country? Because the UK, you mentioned Japan. What do you find when you do these talks in the UK about what people think about that, and are they willing to embrace it?
Well, I think, you know, whenever I talk, the first question I ask is how many people think they're going to live to 100? And usually, you know, a small percentage put their hand up. But then I say, you know, when you think about your children, a lot more hands go up. And so I think people are talking about it a great deal more. I think we're realising that it's an issue. Of course, we have a pensions crisis. We're here, no doubt, today talking about that. And the way around the pension crisis is for people to work longer.
But also to educate people much younger.
About that, yes, absolutely. And also to help them realise that if they work many years, they've also got to be re-educated right the way through. And that means we also have to rewire our education systems, which completely focus on the young, but should actually really be focusing on the needs of people right the way through their lives.
It's an absolutely fascinating topic. We could talk for 100 years,
We
Lynda,
certainly
but thank
could.
you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.